All right. Thank you so much for being here. And I don't even have a prepared question to start, just because this is all about you. You came, I think many of you came, because it is the Gupta family hackathon. And so here is the Gupta family. Maybe not all of the Gupta family. We had the opportunity to meet your parents at the opening reception. I think many of you were there. But questions. We have two mic runners, so raise your hand so that people can hear you and then you can get a microphone. I think I've got a question to the right over here. Maybe say your name first and then the question.
Hi, Dr. Gupta. I'm Urvashi. I am a second-year medical student at Wayne State, and I would be interested in knowing, do you still practice a lot of neurosurgery? And also, I'm picking a field soon, so why did you pick neurosurgery?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to answer. Let me just say, just really quickly, that was a really inspiring afternoon for us. We didn't really know entirely what to expect or how people would identify health communication challenges. And we thought that we were in the middle of a health communication sort of transformation. It's happening really fast. It's happening real time, which is in part why we wanted to do that. And hearing how all of you identify some of these problems was really illuminating for me. I got my head spinning, lots to think about. So thank you for that. We took tons of notes, and this doesn't end today in our minds. There will be follow-up and thinking, and hopefully lots of continued conversations. Diane, I think as you mentioned, who knows, even years from now, startup companies come out of these, big sort of impact projects come out of these. So we're really excited to be a part of that. So thank you very much for that. Yes, I do practice neurosurgery. I did my training here at Michigan, and neuroscience was sort of my first love. I've always loved it, and the way that I sort of think about it in my own mind is, even today as I straddle a couple of fields, if suddenly I had to give up one of them, neuroscience, neurosurgery would be the one that I'd keep. I love it. It's very tangible still to me, and despite the fact that I think some of the conversations I've had, you do make significant impact with health communications, I think there's a certain amount of concrete gratification you get still practicing medicine. I love that part of it. I operate every Monday, every other Friday. I see patients, periodically throughout the week, depending on what's going on. So it's my life is sort of 50-50 on paper. It varies week to week, but that's sort of how I've organized my life. Thank you.
All right.
One thing we do want to couch this about 15 minutes, so we're not going to go on forever because we all have so many things to do. So 15 minutes. So if you're thinking you have a question, make sure you raise your hand so you don't miss that opportunity. Anybody over on this side? Okay.
Yeah, somebody in the back. And I'd love somebody to raise their hand, like for the next question, so that we can already identify you and find. Oh, there's already somebody in the back. Good.
Hey, Green Phone. My name's David.
Hard to forget.
Just wanted to kind of see, like, you always go into something with like an expectation, right? This is a question for both of you. Maybe in like a sentence or two, how was that expectation met? And then, yeah, I guess just how was that expectation met, or how did it kind of exceed your expectation?
You talking about for this weekend?
Yeah, this event. This is like so fresh in my mind right now. And I'm a design student, so anything medical I'm taking in, but it's really interesting.
Well, I think that, and I don't know how many of you had experienced hackathons before, because when she asked that question, I was in the front row and I couldn't see how many hands went up. But I think everybody has a general idea of what to expect when they come to a hackathon, or you all had a general idea, or you did a little research before like I had. But the actual experience of it was really so much more. It wasn't just the whoever wins or what the overall results is. It's just what you got out of it by working together, seeing all of you work together and brainstorm, and the ideas and the energy and the real communication was so much more than I expected, that it was really incredibly inspiring, and it inspired both of us. And it really makes us want to make sure that this doesn't end here, that this goes much, much further.
Yeah, I mean, ditto. I would also say that, it's interesting. I think that a lot of times, in our world, we have certain solutions already that are in search of problems. And I have found that sort of frustrating at times because, there's some incredible technologies out there, and I feel like the technologies sometimes have outpaced their usefulness. I think what I was really struck by, sort of approaching it this way, is that the technologies are serving, the purpose comes first, and the technologies that already exist are fitting into those purposes, or they're being adapted to fit into those purposes. Or I was listening to some of the presentations and thinking, whether or not the presenters know it, this has much wider translations than they maybe even are thinking about. So something that they've created could solve or address their problem, but used in all sorts of different ways as well. So that part of it, I think, really certainly exceeded our expectations.
Ditto. I do want to mention just one thing. When we, first were hoping to do this, and we were seeing all the ideas that you all had, we really were not really understanding what was really going to happen here, and we couldn't be happier from the experience. And I hope that you all are too, and that's supposed to be something that you would all come back to. So please let us know that if it is, and if you get the opportunity.
We hope it exceeded your expectations as well.
All right. I have Jennifer all the way in the back. Yeah. Oh, right. That's you.
So quick question, because like a lot of the ideas in projects today were focused about like making more information available like to patients and stuff. So I was wondering, how do you kind of mitigate the likelihood of this information leading to like self-fulfilling prophecy? So if I know my stress is really high and I see that right in my face, I'm going to become more stressed. Or if I know I have a chronic or even like a terminal condition, that's just going to freak me out and potentially make things even worse. So how do you kind of like address that with all this communication stuff?
Well, I just want to say one thing. We do live in an incredibly technically advancing world, and I think a lot of these projects that you brought forward reflect some of the gaps that this incredible advancement that's moving so fast and so forward, that it's creating for the people that don't have the access to that technology. And I think that those gaps, which has been really incredibly fulfilling to see everybody caring about and trying to fill, has been really inspiring. And so the creation of creating our own stress or creating our own anxiety out of the results that we see, I think that is kind of self-inflicted by the technology that we have. But I also think that the technology that we are creating is also creating ways to alleviate those self-inflicted stressors. I mean, just like the apps that they have, like Calm and other things that teach us how to manage our stress, those are all technologies that we're adapting. So as our technology moves forward, things like this are helping bring up the gaps for the people that don't have that access and don't even have those. Their stressors are much more everyday and much more extreme and much more concepts that we would all want to improve upon.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good question. It's a really good point, and I think that how that plays out, I think we're going to have to wait and see a little bit. I think it's probably going to affect different populations differently. I am a believer that self-awareness is valuable. I think in part because we're not as self-aware as humans as we think we are about certain things, like you gave the stress example. And I think when we have that awareness, it can be, in a way, calming, because you now have more knowledge about yourself. When Jeff was talking about the voice app yesterday, for example, that's something that I helped him develop as a friend, and I beta tested it for a while. And the way it works was that you have your phone, it's frictionless, and that every call that you make, essentially you're having your fractal pattern analyzed, and then within 10 to 15 seconds you would get a sort of readout of your current stress, and then you would get a psychograph that would be over days, over weeks, over whatever period of time you want, to get an idea of what your ebbs and flows of stress are throughout the week. It could help you determine when you might be most productive. You should never call your mom on Tuesday mornings. You should never work out on Thursday afternoons, whatever it might be. It's kind of funny. A lot of my calls are to Rebecca, and so I remember I called her once. I was on the way home, and And I checked my phone, and I looked at it and was flashing sort of orange red, which surprised me because I really did not feel like I was orange red, which meant that I was stressed. When I got home, I asked her, I said, hey, by the way, from your perspective, how did that call go that we had earlier? And she said, no, it was fine. You had your hospital voice on. So, yeah, my hospital voice, really interesting, very agenda-driven, a little lack of emotion, just a different sort of call, different sort of mindset. And it was something that I focused on changing because I was inflicting that on her. She would subsequently be inflicting it on the kids. It was the whole ecosystem that could change as a result of a little bit of self-awareness. That's an example. But I think your point's a good one. I think you're going to wait and see how that plays out in terms of, does it become too much? Does it actually start to have harm more than benefit?
I have a question over here.
Hello. Quick question for both of you. They're going to be slightly different. For you, Dr. Gupta, healthcare technology, how has it helped or hindered the way you practice medicine? And for you, ma'am, how have you, do you believe healthcare law has been able to keep up with the healthcare technology?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second half.
Healthcare law, how does it help you? Is that what you said? How's law kept up with the new technology? Well, I mean, as a neurosurgeon, we've been using different technologies for a long time. I mean, it's one of the more technologically, I think, sophisticated medical specialties. But I was having this conversation with somebody earlier. I think it's primarily focused on diagnostics and therapeutics. I mean, it's been really, really, again, you've had these technologies that have developed and then sort of figuring out uses for them. Deep brain stimulation. We had deep brain stimulation as an early technology, and it was initially, used to treat tremor, oftentimes associated with Parkinson's disease. And now you're seeing all these different uses for this technology: depression, OCD, even obesity. There's a clinical trial going on right now. So it's been a technologically sophisticated field, but not in any of the ways that we talked about today. Not in terms of actually, in some ways, improving the communication between clinicians, within hospitals, from patients to their clinicians, and vice versa. All of that was sort of fascinating to me, and I really do think that this is happening real time. I mean, this is an inflection point, I think, and which is why we wanted to do something like this now. To actually start to think about these technologies in different sorts of ways.
The only things that I can really think of that are big triggers for law, which is probably hindrance to the real-time issues with the medical technologies, is that law wants to protect personal ownership and privacy, and they also want to protect IP, ownership of the people who create it. So that is probably the biggest things that slow down the technology development, as it does for all other aspects of breakthrough in technologies or anything.
We've got a question in the back with Jennifer.
Hi, thanks so much again. I'm wondering if you saw yourselves in the audience, our age, how would you communicate with that person and what would you say?
We feel old, I gotta tell you. I know you guys probably hear this sort of thing all the time. First of all, we're really inspired. As a starting point to say that I personally don't think that I mean, you guys communicated really well and did these amazing presentations up here, and it was really inspiring. And I don't know that we could have possibly been at that level, certainly when we were your age. So it's changed a lot. I think that for me, in terms of if I was pitching, you're saying if I was to do something, like how would I have done it? I think that the thing that I missed, that I wished I had paid more attention to, certainly during residency or even medical school, was that I think you're in the middle of a really fantastic journey, and it's very, very busy journey, and you have an idea, certainly, of why you got into this field and why you're doing the work that you're doing, why you're sacrificing all this time and all of that. But I think when you're in it, it feels very process driven. And you forget sometimes the stories, you know, the intimacy, as I was talking about yesterday, the intriguing nature and just how important it is. The patient stories, to me, are the things as a journalist that I paid more attention to. That was sort of my job, to be able to really tell those stories. And I think remembering those stories now to help guide your thinking about things, to help guide how you might come up with solutions to things. Empathy is a word that we use a lot, but to truly get into the headspace where you are feeling and understanding the other person's experience, I think is an area that I would have really tried to spend more time focusing on.
I would say that I definitely saw myself, although I was much more awkward and geeky, and I would never have been able to get up in front of you all and pitched any of these ideas. But I would really encourage people to not give up on their own ideas and keep having them. I know in my own experience, I will have an idea and I will not think much of it. And about 2 months later, it's the newest thing being sold. You know, it's just made a $300 million, thing. You gotta keep doing it. It's fantastic, and keep looking for problems, because there's always something that could use our help.
Yeah, it's funny. She does come up with these great ideas, and then somebody else takes them and they turn it into this big company. And she's upset, and I tell her that's validating, right? Because there was so many great ideas out there. If your ultimate goal is to make the world a better place, you want to see these ideas get out there in some way, shape, or form and get executed on.
Excellent. I think I've got a question to the right first, over here, and then after that to the left. Well, my right and left. Over here. Yes, you're on.
Hi, my name is Vish, and this is a question for both of you guys. My question is it's a twofold question, and it goes along the lines as, where have you guys drawn inspiration in the past, and where do you continue to draw inspiration today to move forward in whichever discipline?
I draw most of my inspiration from him. He always is moving forward and learning and doing things in the world that, either groundbreaking or just with such depth and perception and empathy that it's very inspiring. Up until yesterday, now I draw my inspiration from you all. It's just amazing to see when you put a group together of really brilliant people who want to do something amazing. Just watching y'all work is just inspiring in so many levels.
Yeah, I draw a lot of inspiration from you as well. I would have said ditto, but that seemed a little weird. I'm the child of immigrants. Probably a lot of you in this room are, and I think that certainly my parents sacrificed a lot in order for us to have the opportunities that we have. So, I think when you're younger, you feel like you don't want to let them down. So that's driving you, and maybe not the most sustaining motivation as you get older, but certainly it really inspires you a lot when you're younger. I now have been, able to travel all over the world and, really recognize how fortunate we are, certainly in this country, to even have a session like this. Most people don't get to do this. They don't get to actually sit there and say, we're going to brainstorm for a weekend, identify problems like this, because they're just trying to keep up with life, or just make sure that they can make things work for their families. So I think that's always something that's in the back of my mind. I don't want to squander time or opportunities. I want to surround myself with people that are continuously educating me and teaching me. So, I imagine many of you in this room are the same way. That's why you're here this weekend. But I think I'm almost 50 years old now. I just never want to lose sight of that. I just always want that to be a part of my life.
I'm looking at Brita to make sure that we have time for one more question. We do? Excellent. Over there.
Hi, my name is Soneida Rodriguez. I'm a University of Michigan freshman, and I'm just curious. So health communication is kind of the intersection between two seemingly unlike fields. Are there any other intersecting fields with health that you think have the potential to grow in the future?
If you want to me, as an outside observer of watching somebody intersect to what seems like unlikely fields, medicine drives a certain type of person to go into medicine. There are people who they have to give up a lot. They give up time with their family, time with their friends, but they're really driven to do something which is taking their intellect to really help a person. They really, truly, I don't know one doctor out there that doesn't really want to help somebody or really want to solve the person's ailment. I find with journalism and the journalists that I know, they kind of have almost that same drive on a little bit grander scale. They want to provide the information to a grander amount of people. And so they have that same kind of drive of wanting to help and provide for people on just kind of different levels, and from using the same kind of intellect, using the same similar questioning, but on just a different direction. So they're actually rather similar.
Yeah, I think I think there's all sorts of different things that can intersect with health. I think that probably there's nothing you could think of that wouldn't possibly intersect with health, depending on your perspective. One thing I will say, and this is again a little bit enlightening for me. We have noticed, certainly within the world of journalism and broadcast journalism, perhaps in particular, that it's changed a significant amount even since I started 17 years ago. We are well aware of the fact by the time that we go and get on television that most people already know the news. You've already received it on your mobile devices. You've already got the headlines, certainly. So if we're not offering you something of increased value versus what you've already seen, then we're really not doing our job. We're really not, so our mission has really transformed in that regard. We are now trying to add the second and third layers to give the added knowledge to these stories, which I think is really important. That's a big part of the mission. The other part of the mission, I think several of you alluded to this in some way in your presentations, or maybe it was part of your thinking, is that there's a lot of information out there, and a lot of that information is coming from a few places. In the health world, there's a lot of direct-to-consumer advertising. There's a lot of big sort of budgets towards getting certain messages out there that improve a lot of whether it be a for-profit company or a certain organization or whatever. But when we talk about giving voice to the voiceless, it's about those voices that aren't getting heard. No one is advocating for certain groups of people. Their voices aren't getting heard. And the assumption, I think, from a human psychology standpoint is those voices aren't as important because they're not as loud or they're not as widely disseminated. We want to, neutralize that. We want to make everything sort of more democratized and a more level playing field for folks. So that's another part. That's not, a direct answer to your question, but to the extent that health and justice are an intersecting thing, that's a big thing for me. That's a large part of what drives me, and I think why we wanted to be here this weekend.
But I really think that you can intermix almost anything, right from health and art. I mean, that was really inspiring. I think that there's just about anything that can be combined together in this day and age.
Rita, one more question? All right, we've got one more question.
You tell me where.
All right, excellent.
It's actually not a question. I wanted just to say thank you, everyone, for having this opportunity. I'm a person who came from political background, so I know nothing about healthcare, and I challenge myself to come here and learn from each other. Yes, I work individually, but you know what? When I stopped by every group, I was amazed about you guys. You did like a great job. Like, I can't wait to see everyone standing on this stage one day and just give a great speech and be like recognized as a figure. You can do it. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what a great question or comment to conclude with.